Hello chess friends, we are in the round 5 of the World Championship match from 1916 between Tal and Botvinnik. Here they play the Caro-Kann, which goes with e4, c6 and d4. In the round 3, Tal in this position played knight to c3 and after d5 knight to f3. But for this game he prepared line with the d4 and after Botvinnik plays d5, knight to c3, d takes e4, knight takes e4, and then they play the main line, which goes with the bishop on f5, attack the knight, knight goes to g3, and bishop to g6. Here main moves goes with the knight to f3, and after threat to go with the knight on e5 and attack the bishop. So when black goes with the knight to d7, then plan for white is to push the pawn on h4 and h5 after that. But that didn't happen in the game because Tal chose another line which goes with the knight from g1 to e2 with the idea to transpose the knight on f4 square and attack the bishop. So we have e6 and after h4, h6, knight goes to f4, attacks the bishop, bishop retreat on the square h7. After that bishop to c4 and knight to f6, queen e2 and bishop d6, bishop to e3. So we can see that the white opened the way for the castles. So basically he chose the castle on the long side, so he will not pretend to make a short castle. Knight from g8 to d7 and knight from g to h5. Attack the pawn on g7 square and offer knights for trade from the g6, from the f6 square. Sorry. So knight takes h5, knight takes h5 one more time, make more pressure on the g7 pawn, and rook goes to g8. So it's clear that black cannot make a short castle, and here white decided to immediately make attack on the king's side, and he pushed the pawn g4. Queen goes to c7 and g5, so bishop goes to g6, and after that both of them make the castles. And here we have move knight to g3. So it looks that that knight on g3 square is not protect enough. So if the black takes, pawn takes, and the queen takes, for that moment Botvinnik is a pawn up, but the pawn on h6 is hanging, so white can take it with the bishop. And position is slightly better for white because he's playing with the bishop pair. So after knight to g3, black didn't capture the knight on the g3 square, so he played h takes g5, and after bishop takes g5, which attacks the rook, so bishop goes to f4, it's a check, and offer bishop for trade, bishop takes, and queen to e3, offer queens for trade. So if the queen takes, pawn takes, then f file is semi-open, and maybe white rook from d1 can be moved on f1 square and make more pressure on the pawns. So queen to h6 played by Botvinnik, and here we have bishop d3, offer bishop for trade, bishop takes d3, rook takes d3, and knight b6. It's time to include the knight from d7 in the game. So Botvinnik chose the plan to transpose the knight on the b6 with the idea to play knight to d5 in the future. So queen takes h6, g takes h6, and after that it's moment for white to try to find the good spots for his pieces, and he recognized that it's a good idea to attack the pawns on square e6 and this one on f7. So he used the rook to attack them and play rook to f3, attack the pawn on f7. So Botvinnik push f5, and after rook to e1, so he could take the pawn here on d4. But let's see that line. If the rook takes d4, and the rook takes e6, and the rook takes pawn on h4 square, then rook takes the pawn on f5. If we compare the material, we can see that it's equal, but white position looks a bit better because he's much more active than black. So he can make pressure on h6 pawn very easily, and also he can move the rook on f7 and this one rook from e6 to e7 to make more pressure on the king, which is very uncomfortable for Botvinnik. So after rook to e1, rook goes to d6 to defend the pawn on d6, and here we have c3, defend the pawn on the d4, and after rook goes to g4, attacks pawn. There was a move, just defending move to push pawn on h5, and everything is fine for white. But here he recognized that it's moment to try to find a way how to attack the pawn on e6. So he played knight to e2. Idea of that move is of course to transpose the knight on f4 and attack the pawn on e6 two times. So if the rook takes that pawn, then knight to f4, and the only way to defend the pawn on e6 is to move the king on d7. So knight goes to d3, and he wants to give a check on a c5, give a check and attack the pawn on e6, and this one on b7. So if black goes with the knight d5, for example, knight c5 gives a check. So if king goes to square e7, then he's pinned. So this pawn on f5 is hanging, and this one on b7 is also hanging. But of course white will first take on b7 because it's the tempo move. Rook is under attack, and after that he can retreat the knight. So let's see that line. Knight takes, and the rook is under attack, and the only free square for the rook is d7. So knight goes back, still attack the pawn on e6. When the rook goes to d6, then it's time for white to take on f5. So in this position white is a pawn up. So after knight e2, knight d5 was played, and then rook h1 defends the pawn on h4 square. Rook goes to d8, rook g3 offer rooks for trade. When the rook takes on g3, f takes g3. So rook g8 make the pressure on the g pawn, and king to d2, rook g4, and king e1. We tend to go on f2 to defend the pawn, and after that this knight from e2 is free to go. So after king d7, king goes to f2, rook e4, and rook e1, king to d6, and knight c1. Open the rook exchange. So rook takes e1, king takes e1, and c5. So here we have king to e2, c takes d4, c takes d4, knight f6. Of course wants to transpose the knight on e4 or h5 to attack the pawn on g3. So king d3 was played, and after knight to h5, then knight goes to e2, and this pawn is very well defended. So e5 and a4, knight to f6, d takes e5, king takes e5, and after b4 they agree for a draw, because it's clear that position is completely equal and no one of them had a chance to score the win here. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and see you in the round 6. Bye bye.